Welcome, everyone. Good evening. I'm Jean Rogers with the Children's Screen Time Action Network. I'm thrilled that you're joining us for tonight's exclusive virtual screening of the film Selling Your Soul, thanks to our good friends at Bullfrog Films. And I just want to mention that the film is available for purchase through Bullfrog for your school to do a school screening or a community screening. And the way that you find that is sellingyoursoul.bullfrogcommunities.com. Thank you to our friends at Bullfrog for tonight. And I just want to make a quick mention. Hope you'll register for our next webinar, which is Technology in Early Childhood, Young Children in Technology, with child development expert Dr. Nancy Carlson-Page. That's Monday evening, November 5th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And the way you register for that is go to screentimenetwork.org and click the Webinars tab. So for this evening's film, very excited about the perspective of this documentary by filmmaker Joni Siani. Very different than the public discourse that you typically hear around screen time and children, which is often about the power struggle between parents and children, and teachers finding it difficult to talk with parents about screen time. And this film goes right to the heart of the issue with the personal relationship that kids have with their digital media. And so with that, I'd like to introduce our filmmaker Joni Siani to say just a couple of words before we get going.
Well, thank you so much, Jean. And again, thanks to Bullfrog for making the virtual screening available. So this is just a sample of the film. This is just a 26-minute version. And a lot of times people will ask me, what is it that you want people to know before seeing the film? And the film speaks for itself. The students in the film speak for itself. The only thing that I was going to have you notice as you're watching it is this never started out to be a documentary film. So the footage that you're seeing from the kids, all of this was a teacher-student project, really. We were coming across the fact that we were knowing that kids were struggling, trying to adapt to this new world, the new digital revolution. And we were problem solving. So teacher and kids together, asking a lot of questions, listening very carefully to hear their feedback on what was going on in their lives. And some of the films that we were watching sort of escalated the problem, talked a lot about here's the problem, but everything ended with a shoulder shrug like, oh, well, what you gonna do? Guess you can just turn it off. So our whole mission when we went to do this film, when we were doing our projects actually, was all about making sure that we were leaving the audience with actual tangible solutions. So I think that's unique about the film. And all of the footage that you're seeing from the kids also is just them trying to get a good grade for our final project. So that was really it.
Very cool. Very cool. Thank you.
So I know you have a little housekeeping.
Yes, we're going to go to our
producer extraordinaire,
Sam Guerin, to give us a few housekeeping tips.
Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to Selling Your Soul. I hope you guys are as excited as I am about this webinar. So just a few housekeeping tips. Our webinar is going to end at 8:30, but Joni has kindly offered to stay on for about an extra 15 minutes in case you guys are really excited, really want some really interesting questions answered. I can guarantee the conversation will be lively as ever. A recommendation from us here at the Action Network, if you really want to go all in for a movie night, you can connect your HDMI cable to your television, so when we broadcast the film, you can actually see it right there on the big screen. In addition to that, we are going to have a Q&A session with Joni and with Jean, so make sure you have your questions ready, and I hope you enjoy the film.
In less than a decade, our smartphone technology has completely changed the way we connect with one another. Yet have we stopped to ask, How are these changes changing us?
But I think technology is beautiful. I think it's one of the most beautiful things in the world because we can communicate with people just on a completely different level that we've never been able to do before. But now people just take complete advantage of that.
One college professor is changing the conversation, asking people not what do you think, but how do you feel?
It's very much an addiction.
I don't know why I had this need just to know what everybody was doing.
Kind of gave me a weird anxiety about being on the internet all the time.
No one asks each other on dates anymore.
No one wants to say hi. No one cares if you smile. It's hard enough to just smile at somebody and get them to smile back at you nowadays.
And found an empowering solution to the problem of digital dependence.
I started feeling like lighter.
I think free is kind of cliche to say, but I do definitely feel that way.
My connections with my friends and family were now stronger.
It wasn't meant to be just in your face the whole time and you're losing the connection.
I want to communicate in real life in my future, and I think that everyone else needs to understand that that's going to go away if we keep continuing to live the way we are.
You cannot take human interaction out of the equation because that's how it began and that's the only way to keep it going.
Joni, this film was an eye-opener for me. I know that many of us online, myself included, work with parents, and most of what we hear is, when should we turn it off? How many hours a day is the right number of hours a day? And did we ever think that maybe the kids are curious about what it would be like to reduce themselves and to go through this themselves? So what do kids say when you speak at schools? What do the kids say to you?
Yeah, well, first of all, again, this happens so organically, and I think the big takeaway was that as a parent, we absolutely forget about how an entire generation missed out on some really fundamental lessons about human connection and how we develop. And again, I'm so proud of our students in this film because they're really so smart and they were getting it, and we underestimate kids sometimes. And when we were just saying, well, what is it? How do you feel? And again, when you ask an emotion-based question and using how do you feel, you get a different response. You get an emotional response. So if you say, what do you think? You get an intellectual. What do you think about the new technology? It's great. Of course it's great. It does this, it does that, it does lots of things. But what about you? And what do you want to be able to do without it? And we forget, and I keep using the term digital socialization because this really is the first generation that grew up creating their identities and creating their relationships through a digital realm without any protocol. And, parents, forgive yourselves because parents had no instruction. And so when we go to schools, a lot of times the parents are looking around like, where was this lesson? Where was this when all of this was unfolding? Because I always say parents parent by consensus. So we didn't have anything. It was all new to everybody. And it ended up being, well, what are you doing? Are you doing unlimited texting? Oh, all right, I guess I will too. Well, Jean's doing it. It was trial and error. And so a decade later, here we are, and we have an entire generation that is really hurting. I know we laugh sometimes about, when people are like, well, what about the research? What does the research say? And, the research is there. You've got the 10-year longitudinal studies. You're able to check the white and the gray matter in the brain chemical changing. And, we have some of our wonderful colleagues at the network that are doing unbelievable, work on any of this. So you can read the research. But the number one thing is when you ask your kid, how do you feel? What do they say?
And it's different. And it's different for every family. It's different for every kid. And I think we all want our kids to have those socialization skills. We all want them to have the character development, the empathy, to be able to be those healthy humans, to be the healthy adults. So I think we'll go to our audience. Sam, do we have questions?
We can keep going on as far until we get one of our questions here. But a couple of things that I wanted
absolutely. I'm checking
to point out is that you mentioned it before. When you talk at schools, I talk to parents, I talk to kids. When I do talk to the parents, the first thing that they're saying is, okay, well, so tell me exactly, they want a prescription.
Absolutely.
You know, they want a very prescriptive takeaway. And one parent recently was like, well, what do we do? What do we do? And I said, we're doing it. This is it. We're elevating, we're educating, we're elevating the conversation. You're here tonight when we do screenings at films. And again, you know, I know you're the same way. We never tell parents how to parent, but we can share what we've learned and we can say, this is what we're finding. You know, if I talk to 1,100 kids in one screening and I'm asking them, well, how are you guys feeling? And I'm getting the same thing no matter where I go. And what's really interesting is the change in the communication generation gap. So for example, the 25-year-olds now talking about the 18-year-olds like these kids today. I feel so sorry for the next generation. And I was just in Atlanta and I was at a high school and we had a panel of high school kids and they're 15 and 16 and they're going, I'm really concerned about the kids today, the next generation. I'm like, because you're 50, right? And they're very upset because they'll say, well, we didn't have Snapchat when I was 12 and 13. You know, I didn't have it at that age, but my younger sister and my brother does. And it's the 15, 16, 20-year-olds, it's the younger people that are very concerned about the next generation. So.
Of course they are. And I thought it was very interesting when the students were saying it makes us think about what was the intention of what we sent. Did we just send it? Did we just send something before? We all send emails sometimes before we think about what we're sending. But for kids where it's so frequent, so regular, so part of their daily discourse that have they stopped to think about what was the intention of that communication.
Right, and then our number one lesson is we communicate to have our needs met. That's why we communicate. And so when we actually re-educate kids to be able to say, well, are your needs being met? Like, are you being heard? Is somebody listening to you actively, or is somebody texting as you're talking? And how does that feel? And regardless of, you know, everyone doing it, people are still offended. Kids are still offended. They'll reserve the right to be able to text when they want to, but the feeling is there. So, Sam, did you say we have a question? We're watching her from behind the screen.
Thanks, guys. You all have so many awesome questions. We're really excited to have them and keep them coming for sure. So someone in the audience asks, if they have a teen who just wants to, you know, kind of fit in with their friends, how can they be the first to make that change?
We get that all the time. So the biggest argument, and you're the parenting expert as well, you know, I mean, I know this stuff, but you know, parents. And parents are rightly scared. They're scared. And I don't like to say, well, just take the phone away. But, you know, my suggestion, I'll ask yours, is find your kids' friends. Who's the group of friends? If your daughter who's 15 has 5 friends and you talk to their parents and you go, this is what we're planning on doing. For you 5 parents together, these are the rules. No phone in the bedroom after 11 o'clock. And you don't have to worry about it because all 4 of your girlfriends are not going to do the same thing. So if parents can come together and do it together, then you set up the protocol, and then that definitely trickles down. What do you think?
Bingo, Joni.
Okay.
You are on the money.
Okay.
There are 2 programs that we support in the Children's Screen Time Action Network that we're aware of right now. We're sure that there are more. But the more parents can come together, there's wait until 8th. So if you have children that are younger than 8th grade, It's a promise, it's a pledge that you take by classroom, by school, by neighborhood, that you can wait to give your kid a smartphone until at least eighth grade.
Yeah.
But you decide together, and that way parents have the peer support and the kids have the peer support.
And the kids are happy.
Yes.
Believe it or not, it's only if you're the only one. But if everybody does it together, like we had a thing in our neighborhood, my friend Joanne was like, homework's at 3:30. That's when everybody does the homework. And the one kid is like, I guess I'll go in and just do my homework because it's 3:30 and that's what everyone's doing. So we do have to get together as parents.
They want to do what their peers are doing, absolutely. And then the other one is Concord Promise, which is also bringing parents together, parent communities together, and being able to say, hey, let's raise our kids with these media values that we've decided on together, so that nobody is the bad guy, no parent's the bad guy, or has to say, my kid is the first one to start.
And that's why I love the network so much, is because the word action is actually in the name of your organization. It's the Action Network. And that means, we can keep talking. We can go, yeah, it's such a problem. But like, what do you want to do? Let's do it. We can make these changes.
That is why the network began, to get things rolling, to get things rolling and not just talking.
Right. You have another question, Sam?
We have another question. So we've been talking a lot, obviously, about kids and their screen time, but we got a really great question from our audience. We're asking, even parents have become attached to their devices. So what advice do you have for parents about giving up their so-called catch-up time at home so that they can spend more time with kids and encourage their kids to unplug?
Okay, so what I'm finding, and we're together on this because we both have
started with this, Jody.
So the modeling, you talk about modeling all the time, but I think we need to shift a little bit because again, and what you were saying that you liked about the film was taking away the power struggle. So what we're trying to do is shift things, not to like, I got to give this up because it's so bad for me, but how do we replace that by being able to look at the benefits? I want to put this away for now because being here with you, there's nothing more important than being here with you right now. And so for kids and for parents, when we can say it's not about the phone, when a lot of times kids will say, like when their parents are going, well, just put the phone away. We don't get to the next part. Why? So kids are like, why? I'm just, annoying my mom. What is it? And it's because in your parents' mind, if I'm talking to the kids, they're going, oh, I just feel like they're distracted. This doesn't seem healthy. I want your attention. I want to be able to talk to you. So if we can move the conversation to the why is it that you're asking me to put my phone away all the time? It's because I miss you. I want to be with you. And when you're on your phone, I'm not with you. And it's more about, when you address it with a lot of love and compassion, it's like, oh, okay.
And that why. And we're also not saying that parents need to unplug altogether,
right,
even while their kids are awake. Some parents do say once the kids are in bed, then I'm going to do my own screen time. But it's also important for kids to see you on your screens. And so one suggestion from some of our network experts is to have certain times of the day, like 4:30 to 5 is when I check my personal or my work email. So they know that's what you're doing during that time. There's a purpose for it, and then it's over. So they understand too that there's a start and there's an end to screen time, and we're not saying it's all bad.
Right, and we're just, and since this whole digital world started, one of the things that we forget is that I don't know of anything else lately that's come into our society that has not had any kind of portion control or boundary. So, even with food, we have the little portion control. It's like when it's empty, it's done, you've had enough. But the way Silicon Valley and everything has been engineered as an addiction, and we know it, and I'm sorry, but that is number one. The honesty is it has been an engineered addiction. And we do have people coming out finally and admitting it. So our thing is honesty. Let's talk about the fact that we're dealing with something that was programmed to be addictive. Number two, boundaries. As you're saying, we need to put some kind of limitations and protocol. So we have a 3-step solution that is just foundational that you can incorporate into your home, into your family life, but also into your school. You know, everybody has a different culture. Every school has a different culture. But you can use these 3 foundational principles and go, well, for here at our school, based on this information, based on limitations at some point, and here's our protocol. And when you empower kids at schools, you get them, you know, the student council people, and they're the ones that are like, yeah, we're going to sit there and we're going to come up with their own rules.
Great.
For it.
Great. And I just want to show everyone the film is available for your school. A great way to start the conversation with your PTA, with assemblies, with having Joni come in and speak, and the book.
The film only,
No app for life.
The film only got done because my students, after they made me write the book, I told you this, they were like, yeah, no, we don't read, so we need a film. So that's how the film got made, not set out to do that. Sammy, we have another question.
Yes, so we have a lot of questions from our audience about what these students are doing right now. So could you tell us a little bit about that?
Okay, well, first of all, just real quickly, the digital cleanse, we adapted that as the years have gone by. We call it the No App for Life Challenge. And we're doing that at schools all over because we have a lot of middle school and high school parents that were saying, I just at least want my kid to have a phone for an emergency. And I just wanted to make a really important point. This was not about going without your device, like, you know, like an addiction. Like I went 3 days without. It wasn't about that. During this No App for Life Challenge and during this program, the whole objective is to learn about yourself. So it's 7 days of journaling, of putting the apps away and using your human apps that we all came with. They were downloaded. You just have to activate your human apps. And can we practice that for a week and be mindful? And then also, as we said, this generation were the fish in water. So we did it in a way so that kids can compare and contrast. You know, we have a first generation that doesn't know anything else. So when we bring the No App for Life Challenge to the schools, we do it as a school-wide activity. Everybody's doing it together, and then they can literally see and feel the difference. And then they're like, oh, okay, now I get it. Again, this started out as just an experiment. We weren't sure where we were going. We were just trying to learn. And we checked in with the students 4 years later, and the mindful communication practices that they learned have stayed with them. So I think we're on to something.
I know. I think we have something to show.
Nothing like a little happy ending.
Oh my goodness. If you are with us tonight and you are a parent or you work with parents, imagine the relief that this solution comes from the kids.
Right, it does. It does.
That's their peer-to-peer narrative, and that they're coming up with the separation from their device themselves. You must be so proud of them, Joni.
I'm so proud of them, but it's ironically silly, and to be able to go, oh my God, all you had to do was really say, how do you guys feel?
Right.
And again, I'm kind of an idealist. I'm all about being human and appreciating what we have. And just, you know, we called our little film company No App for Life because that's what we're trying to say. I mean, there are apps for everything. There are great utility apps. But when it comes to life, when it comes to your relationships, when it comes to feelings and emotions and bonding, there literally is no app for that. We have to do it ourselves. And I think what you can see here is that when you empower kids with the information and say, well, did you know this? Did you know that you have to bond because you have chemicals in your brain when you touch somebody? Like, you have to have that or else you're not going to feel good. And it's just, we forgot that they didn't get all these lessons. And so the re-education and empowering the kids with the information, I think they're going to make the changes because it's not feeling good.
Great. Sam, I think we have some more questions.
Yes, we do. So we have a really great question from one of our audience members. You talk a lot about human connection and sharing these authentic emotions. But really, when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, sometimes teenagers don't really want to share with their parents. And parents are perhaps even a little squeamish about hearing their teenagers, more negative emotions if they're feeling depressed or down. So what recommendations do you have so parents and teens can kind of overcome this barrier and really connect and kind of get past that that barrier?
So one of the things that we understand is that when we were going through this whole digital revolution, what I found parents struggling with was watching these behavioral changes in their teenagers. It was like, well, wait, is this normal teenager? Like, is this the pouting normal teenager, or is this something different? And well, if they're in their room for 10 hours, is this just because they're a teenager, or is there something else? So we did not have a lot of information over the past years, and parents did not know what to do. But I always say technology changed, humans didn't. And we're still going to, have the same needs. And yeah, you're going to get your pouty kid and you're going to have them shut down. But just to share some of the research, one of the issues that we're having now in the digital age is one survey showed that kids don't want to talk to their parents, especially about anything going on digitally, because they're so afraid their parents are going to overreact and take their phones away. So that now is shutting things down. So kids are not able to talk and say, okay, I don't even know how to talk to my mom. I got a sexting picture, or I don't want to get somebody in trouble. And so we're still working through all of this, and we have to come together, and we do need a protocol, and we do need to share this information with you. And non-judgmental listening, if there's any way that you can listen to a teenager without expressing the face, right? Just okay. But it's really hard to not overreact. But again, the non-judgmental listening allows for that freedom to have the information to keep coming out.
And sometimes it's not the parent, also it's the guidance counselor or the coach or someone else that can connect with them really well. So we're coming toward the end of our first hour of our hour time here in first hour. So I'd like to just do our official close for the webinar, and then Joni's willing to stay with us for another 15 to 20 minutes if we have some more questions. So we're really grateful that everyone joined us here at the Children's Screen Time Action Network. We're at screentimenetwork.org. Membership is free. There are opportunities to collaborate on different elements of screen time issues. We know that there are so many of them. We have 5 working groups on different areas that we would love to have your engagement and involvement in. We also have a weekly email, News You Can Use, that is a benefit of membership, and a resource library where you can go and filter by whatever your concerns are with children and screen time, and also contribute resources. We would love to have you contribute resources to the library. So I'm going to say officially good night to those who would like to log off, and then we'll also, Joni's willing to take some more questions.
We have a question.
Okay. So one of our audience members brought up a really great point, that as much as we might like to raise our children in this way where they have this healthier relationship with technology, the fact is the society that we're living in now, a lot of people do not have a healthy relationship, and in fact have a very unhealthy relationship with technology. So how do we kind of get children ready for this digital world, even if they have a healthy relationship with a device in some way? How do we make sure that they, are able to navigate this difficult world around them?
Right. Well, I remember even listening to the last webinar, and I'm not sure who brought up, Matt maybe was saying, when that argument comes up, well, what are we going to do? We've got to prepare our kids to know how to navigate this digital world. And it's a joke because they know how to navigate it better than we do. So you can have a grown-up go, let me teach you the Snapchat and how the kids are using it. They already know how to use it. So, and then you have to ask the question, then why do all the Silicon Valley parents send their kids to schools without any technology? Zero. And even the CEO of Google, was saying, we make Google so ridiculously easy. You don't have to teach somebody how to do that. But we've always known that schools were part of the socialization process. It wasn't just reading, writing, and education, but it was part of developing socially. That's one of the things that schools have done. And there is a big initiative, and the resources are right on our resources page, that we do have to create better balance and push back a little bit against this screens all the time, screens for everything. So we were talking about, you're in a classroom and then you're in front of a screen all day. And again, I keep going back to our last webinar, which was so good, when they're talking about, when they're talking about the Google Docs, it's like to collaborate. You're sitting next to the kid.
We're collaborating
right now.
Letting you know.
Yeah, and so I think we kind of have to say, you know what, we have to empower the kids to go, this is your world. Is this what you want? Everybody face to screen all the time. And when we empower them, we'll be able to shift the balance a little bit and giving everyone the real truth about what's happening out there.
And the other thing I will just say about that is that it empowers kids to go out and stand up for what they believe in. My kids were raised in what I called a limited media household, and they felt a little bit different at times from the other kids, but they were able to say how they benefited and what they didn't like about it as well. But they were able to speak up for what they believed in because they weren't going along with the pack. So
I always kind of liken it to, like the kid that ended up in the lunchroom, like eating all the organic, the really good food, and they're like, Mom, can't I just have Lunchables? You keep sending me to school with like healthy food. I just want the little, and the parents are like, sorry, I love you and I want you to be healthy. It's sort of the same thing. If we can just say, I'm sorry, I have these limitations because I love you and I'm not trying to have you ostracized from the world, but it's too much. And I think the more we educate parents and the more parents who are saying that, it's sort of like we believe in organic communication, with the carrots that you're sending your kid to.
And if we go back to being a community and parents supporting parents and then having the kids support their kids, then they won't be that only one.
And you can commune in real life. Like you can actually get together and create, we don't have to always do everything online. We can actually get together.
I believe our Concord Promise people too, they're having coffees and being able to discuss this face to face.
And without judgment. That's the one thing, like, I do this with my kid, it's like, no, it's a problem.
It is. Do we have another question?
Yeah, this one's a bit more technical, I guess. But we have a lot of people who are really excited about sharing resources with us and checking us at Action Network.
Good.
So Jean, could you go into how can people share resources with us and get in touch with us?
Absolutely. So one way you can do that is to send an email to info@screentimενetwork.org. Share your ideas with us. We're a growing community. We launched in November of 2017, so we're coming up on a year. We thought we maybe would have 100 members in the network in a year. We have about 560 members in the network. So there's a real hunger, there's a real need for this, and we are excited to have new resources because we don't want to be recreating the wheel, and we don't want our members to be recreating the wheel, that people need to share resources, be able to adapt them. So if you go to the Resource Library tab on ScreenTimeNetwork.org, you'll see a Submit button. Submit your resource. We'll take a look at it. We'll talk to you about it, and then we'll be able to post it on the website. And then also another way to share resources is to join one of our working groups. I'm just going to quickly name those working groups. We have 5 now. We're still open to others, but Children in Nature, Mental Health Professionals, Early Childhood, Screens in Schools, and Faith Communities. So if any of those areas interest you, we would love to have you join. The way you join a working group is to go under the Member tab on ScreenTimeNetwork.org and to click Working Groups. And then you'll see all 5 working groups and how to join. And working groups are active now, and they're putting the action into the Action Network.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Jean. So we have another tricky question from our audience. Now let's say your kids have their friends over, and their friends are on their devices the entire time they're over at your house. As a parent, how do you go and, kind of intercede in this situation without overstepping any boundaries?
Well, because I used my own child as a social science experiment, which every parent does, if you have a kid, that's what it is. And so a lot of times, you don't know what you're, when this was starting, it was like, oh gosh, am I going to, end up messing them up? But we just did our first podcast with a bunch of the kids that grew up with my son and our house, and we had a thing called the phone bowl. And this was years ago, this was 10 years ago. And it was, number one, we have a pool, so I wasn't going to have a kid with a phone going into the pool. So we had literally in the kitchen, we had the phone bowl, and the kids would put their phones in it, and they were griping about it. But I mean, one time with this kid, I was putting a little dish towel over. I'm like, it's going to be okay. It's just going to take a little break for a minute. And then they would get distracted, and then they would actually enjoy it. And then I was able to, in this first podcast that we just did for No App for Life, check in with some of these kids, and they're like, I remember growing up with the phone bowl, and we were like, what is she talking about? Why? And they look back now and they go, that was the best thing. We always had such a good time. And that's what it is to be a parent. I mean, it's not easy all the time. And we want to make the kids happy, but there are ways of just saying, again, think of it as organic carrots rather than the Doritos all the time. It's a healthy consumption.
Absolutely.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it absolutely does, the phone bowl. And I think also setting expectations before those kids are coming to your house, to let them know, we have rules here, and these are the great things you're going to get to do here, but you're not going to be able to be on your phone.
And
you're
again,
here for the play date.
Right. And again, depending on ages. But the other thing is having, if they're young kids, making sure all the parents have your phone number, because it was awful sometimes, a parent pulling up to pick up the kid and they texted, and then you're like, is so-and-so here? Are they gone? So we had rules of when you come in, you say hello. When you're leaving, you make sure I know who's leaving. So, it's the normal common.
So familiar.
Yeah, it's the common sense stuff. But I think parents need to be reminded that it's okay, that you're going to set some of these kind of rules. It's for safety and health. That's it.
That's why you're here tonight. That's why you're listening to this, is because you have different expectations, and I think letting the kids.
We have one more question.
Okay, Sam, we have one more question.
One more question. So, Joni, when you're trying to get people to reframe thinking about their opinions about social media to actually feeling, getting them to disclose how they feel, how do you frame that question? Do you have a specific question that you go to?
It's semantics, right? So if you say, what do you think? People intellectualize, what do I think? I think, let me think. But when you say, well, how do you feel? How does it make you feel? And that was, if you saw in the film, how do you feel without your phone? I feel anxious. I feel stressed. How do you feel on social media? I feel judged. I don't like the constant comparison. So if we can get that shift in the narrative, in the conversation, and having parents being able to open up that conversation with this kids by literally saying, I absolutely know that you have it harder than I did when I was your age. And if you can help me to understand what you're going through it, because, you know, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I've had more and more kids today say that they're jealous of their parents' childhood because they feel that their parents had it easier than them. So if we can maybe approach it with some compassion and say, yeah, and how can we start to work to make your life easier and a little happier? When I go talking to kids, I first come in and they're like, oh, what makes you such an expert on social media? And I'm like, okay, I'm here for one reason, guys. All I'm here is to make you happier. That's what we're going to talk about today. How can we get you to feel happier, more connected? And nobody's here to finger wag or say, or lecture about any of the dangers. It's like, let's be honest. How are you guys feeling? There seems to be a problem, and we're here to help. That's really it.
No, and I think you can tell. Wouldn't it be great to have Joni speak to the kids at your school? She is a happy person, and to come in with that information rather than, with sort of a dictating attitude about it.
Throw the questions to them. Tell me, help us figure this out. You're the experts, not me. This is your world. You understand it way better than I do. But when you ask a kid for advice, they love to give it. And then just listen. It's really kind of easy if we just go, oh yeah, that's how conversations used to go. Somebody would talk and the other person would listen, right? And they always say the way to start a solution is to start the conversation, but we have to teach people how to have a conversation.
And this has been a great, great conversation this evening, Joni. Thank you all for being here. Thanks to Media and Communications Professor Joni Siani for creating what you created, for starting the conversation, and for supporting the Children's Screen Time Action Network.
Thank you guys for your work and for moving and taking the reins and going, let's do something, because, we can research this forever. It's time to take action. I really have to admire your philosophy on let's go. Let's do something about it.
We're here.
And thanks to Bullfrog again for letting us screen Selling Your Soul tonight.
Thank you, Bullfrog. Thanks, Sam, for a great producing
you,
and technical
Sam.
support. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Thank you.